Let's ventilate this issue with Advocate Simba Chitando. He joins us for an update on outstanding issues still needing to be resolved on the matter of the Zimbabwean Exemption Permits. Thank you very much, sir, for your time this afternoon. So we just heard from Mr. Livet Mugejo, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Zimbabwe, saying that South Africa took a sovereign decision and they respect that decision.
Afternoon. Thank you for having me on your show. Yes, that is what the government would say, that the South African, well, the Zimbabwean government would say that the South African government have made a sovereign decision, and the government would obviously respect a decision, or accept a decision rather, but the exercise of sovereignty within South Africa does not take away the human rights of the individuals, in this case ZEP holders, within South Africa's jurisdiction. And also important to note that the South African executive government is not the government in of itself. It is the government involves the judicial branch of government. It also involves parliament, which is also the parliamentary form of government. And the decision, which is our argument, by the executive is inconsistent with the laws promulgated by parliament, and it is also a matter before the judiciary, who, in our view, would find that the decision by the executive is inconsistent with South African law, and South African law is sovereign, not the executive. That would be my answer to that decision.
In terms of any latest information that you're perhaps able to share with us with your engagement with, the Department of Home Affairs, is there anything new that you can share with us?
Yes, well, we do know that the practice directive on the 13th of December, the practice directive 10 of 2021 was withdrawn by the Minister of Home Affairs a day before the matter was going to be challenged by me in court. And it has left many Zimbabwean exemption permit holders in a very difficult situation. And they don't have permits in their passports. And it is something that the ZEP Holders Association will be challenging in courts. That is something that is new. I understand that the process has begun, and we wait an outcome from the courts on that issue. It is a very tense time. Many Zimbabweans want to travel for the festive season, and without official documents inside their passport books, that will be a very difficult situation. So, a very difficult time, very tense time.
Meaning what? That people are not able to leave South Africa because they fear that they won't be allowed back? Speaking to the Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, last week of Home Affairs, he indicated that, people will not be facing persecution, neither from the police or anybody, and that they have a 12-month extension, not extension, but they have 12 months grace period, to get whatever necessary permit to their situation that they need.
Yes, thank you for that. In response to what the minister said, it's important to note what was happening before in the history of ZEP holders and Zimbabweans generally in South Africa. Long before any of this, when I say this, talking about the decision by Cabinet on the 24th of November, Zimbabweans on the street will be pulled off with or without documentation, and would have to prove their legal status in the country. Your average policeman, your average inspector at Home Affairs struggles. This is long before the 24th of November. Any immigration practitioner in the country will tell you that there are Zimbabweans and other foreign nationals who are arrested with official documentation. Even South African citizens are detained for the same reason, because of a fear that their documents are illegal or fraudulent. So what has happened doesn't change that situation. In fact, it makes it worse. You have a situation where we're not sure or the Home Affairs officials and the police at the border posts, etc., they can't distinguish between an ordinary ZEP holder who has this grace period, which is not properly defined, from a person who's in the country illegally. So the decision has made things very difficult. We have literally made almost 200,000 people illegal in the country on a very vague, opaque grace period, which you can't find in the Immigration Act, which is a problem.
Are you anticipating any issues, at border posts when people return from Zimbabwe?
Definitely. There's always issues when people return from Zimbabwe. This is long, again, it's long before the decision by Cabinet on the 24th of November. There's always been issues at the border post. And these issues are compounded by confusion. Last week there was confusion. The whole world was confused by what the minister withdrew. Some people thought they withdrew the decision for ZEP holders, the non-renewal decision. And in the end, it was actually the directive that was withdrawn. So that already tells the public that there's confusion generally about what's going on. Nobody with authority, say for the lawyers involved in the matter, myself included, other immigration practitioners and experts know what the current legal status is. And the difficulty is compounded by the fact that the grace period is not properly defined. It doesn't make sense to many people who are applying the law, and it will result in arrests and detentions, and then the individuals affected would have to prove their status, something very difficult to do after the expiry of their permits on the 31st of December. So yeah, it's a very difficult time.
Right. If I could get your thought very quickly for us on two issues, right? So the minister has come out to say that, and I quote, "We're dealing with self-interest groups that don't care about the well-being of Zimbabweans, one." And in the package that we played from our colleague Xolisani Mncube in Zimbabwe, a national there saying that, there's mixed reaction on the ground. Some people calling for Zimbabweans who are in South Africa to come back home and rebuild the country. And some of them saying that, well, you cannot be a burden on that system next door. So your thought on those two issues, please.
Those two issues. Well, I'll start with the last one. You cannot expect anybody to up and leave any country within a few months after having lived in that particular country, wherever it is in the world, South Africa or anywhere else, for more than a decade, where their children go to school, where often the children are born and they don't know any other home besides the country that they're in, where all their investments are, which are all protected. All these investments are protected by various laws, exhaustive laws, and no one can actually expect that to happen. I mean, for that reason alone, besides that, the practical aspect of the impossibility and the impracticality and I have to say, the cruel suggestion that an individual can just pack their suitcase after more than 15 years, 20 years in the country and then in a matter of weeks relocate somewhere else by force is the only precedents one can find are in Idi Amin's government or when he forced the Indians out of that country and various other examples, all of which led to the destabilization of those particular countries. So that would be my answer to the second question. The first one, the minister's suggestion that the interest groups that are supporting ZEP holders are self-interested groups is very concerning. When Human Rights Watch and when Zimbabwean Solidarity Network, when the Helen Suzman Foundation, when Freedom Under Law, all the most respected human rights organizations throw their weight behind the ZEP holders, and the minister accuses them, human rights organizations, of being self-interested, one then has to ask the question, is the minister isolating himself and isolating the South African government from the international community and from established human rights organizations. It's a very dangerous precedent. In my view, the minister is on a slippery slope where he risks being his tenure as a minister being ranked amongst the worst human rights violators in African history, and that's where he's going. And his consistent pushback against human rights organizations will follow the same path that it has for all government officials who push back at human rights organizations. They end up being sullied and regarded as human rights violators, which is a bad thing.
Advocate Simba Chitando represents Zimbabwean Exemption Permit holders. Thank you for your time this afternoon.